In our home in Columbus, Ohio, there was always music everywhere. We went to a lot of concerts. I became a passionate jazz aficionado, and in Columbus, Ohio was where I met Rahsaan Roland Kirk. I got to spend some time with Rahsaan early in my life, and that was very important to me, and that became an abiding relationship. We would spend a whole day just listening to alto saxophone players. Then we would spend another day listening to tenor saxophone players. I think that's the real kind of foundation of my whole life in music. When I first came to San Francisco, I started playing Latin jazz, and I started playing right away with an Afro-Cuban jazz band called Kwani and the Quanditos. My relationship with Latin jazz, that's Afro-Cuban jazz music, that relationship is one of the longest lived in my whole life in music. So I went to Keystone Corner, which was a blues bar at that time, and I went there to get a job. Guy says, I don't know about that. He says, I'm trying to get rid of this place. He said, maybe you should buy this club. And I said, well, I've only got $8,500 to my name. And he said, well, come back here in a couple of days and we'll see what we can do. And then voila, all of a sudden at the age of 25, I owned my own jazz club. I mean, to really understand Keystone Corner, you have to understand that this was still part of the hippie era. It was a psychedelic jazz club. We had psychedelic murals on the walls. It just wasn't a place you went to hear a concert once in a while. It was a part of our lives. And nobody was an opening act. Nobody was a closing act. I was definitely overly idealistic and overly utopian. No, I really didn't know what I was doing when I opened Keystone Corner, except that I loved jazz. Then I moved back here in 1983. Between 1985 and 1990, I started managing the Boys Choir of Harlem. Working with kids has to be one of the greatest experiences you can have as a musician. You could be affecting the rest of their lives. The main job of a jazz recording producer is to create as nice an environment for the music as you can create, artistically putting together a program. And so I started working with Chico O'Farrill on his comeback record in 1995, 96. And then I got to work with Bebo Valdez, and then I got to work with Arturo O'Farrill, Chico's son, and even Arturo O'Farrill's children. Lo and behold, I wind up starting to work with jazz at Lincoln Center at the turn of this century. Now I wind up helping to start Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola. It's a wonderful environment for our music. It's one of the greatest jazz clubs ever created, physically and artistically. My feeling about jazz music is that it's a cycle of shared creativity. And when a musical environment is at its best, there's really a strong feeling going back and forth between the artist and the audience. And they're feeding each other very integrally. Because jazz is telling your own story in your own way. That's the essence of what our music is all about.